Pentagon's former software chief has made a statement saying China has won the artificial intelligence battle with the United States and is heading towards global dominance because of its technological advances. China, the world's second largest economy, is likely to dominate many of the key emerging technologies, particularly artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and genetics within a decade or so, according to Western intelligence assessments. How is the rest of the world, including India, fighting this tech war with China, and will we be able to win it? Let's discuss this with our guest. Joining me on the program at this point in time is Mr. Subhashish Banerjee, AI and robotics technology expert. Also with us on the show is Ajay Data, founder and CEO of XGen Technology, data security expert. Professor Aman Agarwal, director of Indian Institute of Finance, economist, is also joining us. And last but not the least, Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is also here with us. Joyita, let me start by asking you a very simple question. We are already embroiled in trying to deal with China when it comes to a number of advances that they have made throughout the world, be it territorial or be it trampling on the sovereignty of other countries, including India. How is this artificial intelligence surge on behalf of China likely to impact the ascendance of developing countries, specifically India?
Well, Vineet, I think here it is more of a case of how China plans to use AI technology in terms of strategic use, and that is what we expect from China. And you see, this is also one of the reasons why many of us, in fact, people are glad that, you see, when we are talking about AI, a lot of it is facilitated by the generation of metadata. The more data you have, the better your AI technology becomes. This is also one of the reasons why China, if they had got control of, for example, the 5G rollout that India is now planning to have, sooner or later. Now, if it was a Chinese company, Huawei specifically, if it had won that bid, it would have happened, we would have handed over to China over 33% of the world's metadata on a platter, and that would have really helped China in terms of AI. So that is one good step that we have taken, that we have tried our best, and I think it is likely to be, when it comes to the final rollout, Huawei has been eliminated. So, but you see, this is where the West, I would say, is having a problem with China, because China, the Huawei is kind of spreading. So, for example, in Canada, so it is very much there. In Russia, it is there, but then Russia is totally with China. So until and unless we control how we allow our data to be shared, Chinese have a huge upper hand on us. And for that matter, right now, if you look at it, if you look at our telecom structure in particular, the Chinese have a very strong control over it. Okay, the whole backbone is Chinese, and we should be frankly very, very worried. If you ask me, we should be very worried, and especially when it comes to these things, because China is an adversarial country. It is adversarial towards us. We are always living in what we have right now is uneasy peace. Okay, we may not be in a state of war with them, but what we have is right now is extremely uneasy peace. So I think we have to be very careful about this aspect, because ultimately all future warfares will be fought on the basis of on the artificial intelligence is going to play a huge part in it.
Absolutely. And Ajay, what's more worrying is the fact that the Americans have conceded that the Chinese have left them behind when it comes to artificial intelligence. What kind of an impact is this going to have, considering the ongoing situation where, everybody in the world is looking to China for technology and manufacturing support?
So I think let us not just say one concede on report basis. There is definitely a big difference between US, China, and India. So if I take US as an example, we have to see 4 or 5 parameters for seeing what is happening in AI. First is the investment going into the research and development for AI. How many PhD scholars are working for AI? How many papers are cited in the research papers is there? How many product companies are working on AI and ML side of it? How much productization and how much industry is producing using the AI, the products and the tools which are being done? There are many, many parameters which are required to be seen together, not just 1 or 2 parameters for any industry, and especially a complex subject like AI. And for India, of course, one data part which Mrs. Basu has said. So this is one part. But second part is what we need to do. I think there's a 3-step process. And 3-step process is plan R&D policy, R&D investment. We require a large sum. And let me give you a number. We got around $2 billion in India on AI specific companies as an VC investment. In US, it is 30 billion. In China, it is 40 billion. That's the kind of amount. We are far behind what money is going through. And that is where we need money. We should not worry about we are far ahead or far behind. We should worry about what next step we are taking. And that is where the entire worry is. We have to really get up and see that investment takes place. Industry is supported well by the conducive policy, by a very good atmosphere for bringing the artificial intelligence related work, build products and roll them out. Third is a huge step which is related to the education part of it. Are we creating software engineers? Are we having a curriculum? For next 2 years, we are going to have AI powered engineers who can fight with the world. And attached with that argument is a little bit of brain drain. And I think the worry which we should have is, in a report which I read a few days before, India is highest on a brain drain in comparison to China and Russia. We lose more people on
True.
the foreign countries rather than they building the applications in India. They will rather be hired at a much rapid pace in China and Russia and in US, and you will lose those people whom you are preparing here in India to build something on AI, because we do not have enough industry, enough R&D investment, and enough resources who can consume them.
Absolutely. Mr. Banerjee, where do you stand on this? The world is heading towards artificial intelligence. There is more reliance, more dependence on things being orchestrated and operated by robots. And China, a country which has concerns of its own, is going to be at the helm of this entire juggernaut. That is definitely not good news for India. And considering the impediments and challenges which have been taken or brought out by Ajay, this seems to be a fight that India also needs to up the ante on.
So thank you. I would first like to add one thing. Joyita was talking about that data matters a lot in AI. The more data you have, the better you are likely your algorithms are to do. But what is also important to remember is it is not only data, it is diversity of data. So to give you an example, I can run 1 billion points of an autonomous car in Silicon Valley. Suppose you train it on a one-way road, it will understand that, okay, a one-way road means a one-way road. Whereas if you bring it to India, it will understand that a one-way road means that the probability of a car coming from that direction is higher. Cars also come from the other direction. This is a very important differentiation because AI cannot learn on its own. It needs diversity. So the good news is that India is by far the world's most diverse country. So one thing which the Chinese have done is that in the last 70 years, they have made their people subservient to the CCP. That doesn't promote diversity. So you are not likely to get very good AI if you build it only on the Chinese ecosystem. But what Joyita was correctly pointing out, what they have done is they have branched out to the entire world. Half of Africa is colonized by China, practically. So unfortunately, they are getting access to diverse data. What Ajay was saying, the way I look at it in terms of investment, 2 billion, 30 billion, If you look, what do you need to make a successful company? You need three things. You need talent, you need ecosystem, and you need money. So I think all of us can agree that India has by far one of the world's best talent pools, if not the best. If we get the ecosystem right, then we will get money. So we keep running after money, but I would say that it is more important to set the ecosystem right. And when I say ecosystem, one very important thing is the government has to learn how to buy innovation. Anywhere in the world you see, whenever new technology comes in, it comes in with government support. So for example, if you look at the huge defense industry in US, all of it has come with government support. Look at the balance sheets of Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and so on. They get $40 billion just to develop one motor program. Once that is developed, they sell it not only to the US Air Force, but they sell to the world. Similarly, in China, all this AI has developed because the government has poured in billions of dollars. We do not have billions of dollars. Let's be clear. If we talk about comparing the scale of money which China or US can pour into this, we do not have anything like that. But we have smartness. So even if we put in, say, 10% or 5% of that, and if you can get the innovation process right, I think we will do very well. One example, if you want to look at it, is look at ISRO. Look at what their satellites cost and look at what a satellite for NASA costs. So if you can get the process right of how to buy innovation, I think a lot of these problems will be solved.
All right, Professor Agarwal, where do you stand on this? Well, the Americans have basically, put out a red flag that China is headed in this direction, and the Americans have to catch up. But where does this leave India?
You see, first of all, as far as the statement which you're talking about of the chief AI officer who left his position recently, he does say that the kind of money which is coming into AI in the United States itself is 3 times that of what China is investing. We should not forget that both China, US and India are democratic countries. And unlike China, which is a purely autocratic country, where something which is discussed or debated or decided at the top flows down to the last level in that pipeline immediately, as against any democratic country which is there. So to take about decision making or things to be implemented, like most bridges, ports, dams, highways in most countries would take 2 to 3 years, whereas in China they built it up in 8 to 10 months. Now that has been something which is a debate, but the important thing is the application of AI. Now the one which has been quoted is typically from defense perspective only. AI has a multiple role not only in defense but in large number of other activities, which include education, healthcare, medicines, various other frameworks which it is being utilized now in, even in terms of our day-to-day applications of dealing with mobiles and others, which is there. So to look at those frameworks, as pointed out earlier, the diversity does make a difference and the application makes a difference. In medicine, certainly, there are other countries which are much more advanced. In defense, there could be chances that China may be taking a stepping stone ahead. But the question here is whether the technology could be adopted around the world or it is going to constrain to China, because mostly when I have traveled to China in the last 15 years, 6 or 7 times, each time I found that most of the information which is, whether in universities or in the government, is all in Chinese. And everything which is done is in Chinese. That means it does not have a reach to the outside world at all. Whatever the Chinese say is the last word, or the government says is the last word. And that has always been a question whether the data can be trusted or what they are actually speaking out can be trusted. So we should not go by some of these statements which come out, and we have seen even with Corona, how large amount of intelligentsia from the United States were hired to work in that lab in Wuhan, where from this coronavirus has got germinated and spread across the globe. So to say whether the defense personnel is speaking totally loyal to the United States and coming out in its own loyal structure, or is it a motivated factor which is coming out of China as a structured manner, is a very difficult task today. I think what we need to build on is we should keep our path focused, very clear. What India has been doing is very strategic. It has been utilizing AI in almost all spheres, whether it is government policy making, bringing in transparency in the government, trying to build up the grassroots framework, or even implementing what has been there in various academic studies or researches in medicine and others. And I think that is something which will build a stronger country, like we have been able to do in various spheres, whether it is monetary or industrial spheres. I think in this sphere also, we are fairly strong. It may not be known to the world, but we are much stronger than what the world perceives of us. And China is no threat from any perspective, at least from this particular region of AI.
All right, I understand your point. Joyita, for rhetorical and argumentative purposes, with the kind of backlash that China has received owing to COVID-19 and other countries, going against China, specifically, countries like the UK, Germany, Australia, even India and the ASEAN countries, do you think the pace at which this particular gentleman has described China's ascension, is it going to be a possibility, or do you see these impediments are definitely going to harm China? Because we are getting reports that even their economy at this point in time is headed towards deeper doldrums.
Well, Vineet, when you look at what is happening with China, we have to look at what Xi Jinping has been talking about. He has been talking about common prosperity. That is what they're trying to bring. And when they are, development for all, it's fine. But they're talking about common prosperity. And again, they're talking about redistribution of wealth, which this has started, I would say, in the last few months, they have started. What has happened in China is there's a huge disparity. Now, since China is not a democracy, it's an autocracy, when there is huge disparity, there is no valve from where unhappiness, the dissent can be voiced. In India, being a democracy, we have the whole electoral system and where people can vent their grievances, and that is a mechanism that really works. So in spite of very deep divide, we function, we manage to function. But China, that is becoming a particular problem with China. So as a result of which, Xi Jinping is reverting to a situation, a very communist, very ideological position he has started taking, because of which what has happened is, one of the fallouts of that is this real estate crisis, or apart from all the economic crisis that China is facing right now. Of course, there's a real estate bubble was always there. They were inflated. But in spite of that, this whole fundamental thing about, redistribution of wealth and common prosperity, that is behind this one of the triggers that is leading to the downfall of Chinese economy. And this China, which was considered to be a heaven of, a capitalist heaven, it had started becoming. Now it is trying to go back to a very strongly socialist path. So even otherwise, business opportunities and China's interactions in terms with the world is getting increasingly limited if they're trying to look back at the past. So what is going to happen is, the more China goes inward, the more China starts talking about its own history. There's this whole movement kind of Xi Jinping has started. You think about your own country. How Western heroes and these Korean heroes and all these, they're effeminate, this K-pop group is bad. So how he has cut gaming time, internet restrictions. So the more China becomes regressive and I don't see China even coming anywhere near the US to become a superpower of the world. You have to be free, you have to be open, you have to be a place where you can interact with, where others can come and do business with you. So all these things are very much required. But when you start hurting yourself, apparently in the name, because to secure your own position, to secure the CPC's position in the Chinese society, they have been always told throughout that you don't have democracy, what you have instead is prosperity. But when the prosperity goes, how do you justify it? So this is what is going on in China. China is going through a lot of churn. There's a lot of turmoil going on in China. So frankly, this AI thing is also, I would tend to agree, a lot of this is also hype. Of course, it has done, it is doing a lot, but to an extent, I think it's a hype. I'm not certain whether it has been able to overtake US or not.
Okay, concluding thoughts from the remainder of our panelists, starting with you, Ajay. Ajay, this also presents an opportunity for India, doesn't it? If China isn't democratic, if China isn't inclusive, And if China is going to be bowed down by all these restrictions, self-imposed restrictions, then definitely it's an opportunity for India.
For sure, Vineet. And let us take the sheer size of the business. Let us look at that. And I just talked about few $1 billion being invested in India as VC. But what is the total forecast in 2027 or 8? Let us say 7 or 8 years from now. That is $1,000 billion industry, just AI. And imagine, and we are looking for approximately 35 to 40% CAGR, which means we are looking for an annual growth rate of almost 35 to 40%. Huge opportunity for everything. And when we talk about the ecosystem, my co-panelist said, when we are talking about the co-panelist, the ecosystem, which means R&D, education, investment, industry, government policy, everything has to come together. And that's exactly what I am talking about, that we cannot leave one stone unturned to capture this policy, to capture this opportunity. Opportunity is huge. We have to see that the software solutions which are driving the entire AI, whether it is for the end user, whether it is for product development, whether it is for forecast building, whether it's for going to build B2B or B2C solutions, whatever it is, we have to see that our AI engine starts at a very rapid pace and we capture our pie. There is no area, and I'm making a big statement, there is no area where AI cannot help. In our day-to-day life, very small things like serving in a car, like autonomous cars, or serving like a waiter and a food, or for the missiles, or drafting your legal letter, or drafting a prescription, and giving the eyesight, doing the image processing, or the video processing. Anywhere you can think about a technology or the use case, there could be every
Okay.
single
All right. Ajay, I'm not sure if you can rely upon a robot to fill out a medical prescription, but it's thought worth exploring. Couple of minutes left onto our program. Mr. Banerjee, you next. Concluding thoughts.
Yeah. So I would like to add a few things. I disagree. Unfortunately, a lot of people who love democracy seem to think that a non-democracy country cannot be powerful. So just look at Russia. Russia has never been a democracy, and just look at what they did to the US in Middle East, Afghanistan, wherever you want to say. So I would first say don't underestimate China. If we do, it will be to our own folly. Second thing is, as far as the crash is concerned, if you look at the last 20 years, China runs on 2-year cycles. They tighten, everybody talks of crash, and then they again open the gates. Purely from an economic point of view, no country in history which has a savings rate as high as China, 40% plus, and a current account surplus like they have, ever crashed. Yeah, they will have pain. And the third thing is that Ajay was talking about investment of 2 billion. I'm an investor, I run a fund. My biggest problem is I don't have enough companies in AI to invest in. And that is why I'm saying that the ecosystem needs to be better.
Right,
we need
that's a good
government
point.
to buy innovation.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Professor Agarwal, half a minute left, sir. We'll end with your concluding remarks.
Thank you. No, I think India is going strong. Whether it is Moody's, whether it is World Bank or IMF or any other agency, we have been able to gain the appreciation from policymakers, from industry, from institutional investors, whether it is foreign direct investment, or whether it is exchange reserves, whether it is even the Indian rupee which is floating in the market, and the way we have been able to manage the NPA problem in the last couple of years. I think we have been able to do that partially also because of the way partial AI has been introduced in various ecosystems within the by the government in the Indian economy. And I think that is something which will reap us fruit going forward. We need not worry about China. Okay. China has its own problems. We have our own problems. We need to go strong. And I think we have the skills, the muscle power, the financial power, and the emotional and intelligent power to go forward, timing in with AI and bringing it to our benefit.
Okay, a lot of good points, a lot of metadata coming out of this conversation that we have had. which is obviously going to be pivotal for the stakeholders. Thank you everyone for being a part of this wonderful conversation. We dip into a short break, folks. We'll be right back.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.